The intermediate layer of the intrinsic muscles of the back consists of a major muscle group called the erector spinae muscle. And just to confuse us a little, the erector spinae muscle can be divided into 3 muscles, which form columns within the muscle. The lateral column is made up of the iliocostalis muscle, the intermediate column is made up of the longissimus muscle, and the medial column is made up of the spinalis muscle. And just to make things even more complicated, each of these muscles can be further broken down into smaller muscles that are associated with the region of the vertebrae that they're connected to. For example, cervical, thoracic, and lumbar, but we'll discuss each of these divisions as we go along. But don't worry, there's nothing we can't handle. Let's proceed gently with the lateral column and have a look at the iliocostalis muscle. The iliocostalis muscle, our lateral column, can be divided into 3 parts. The cervical part of the muscle is known as the iliocostalis cervicis. It has its origins on the angle of the 3rd to 6th ribs and inserts on the transverse processes of the 4th to 6th cervical vertebrae. The thoracic part of the muscle, known as the iliocostalis thoracis, has its origins on the angle of the 7th to 12th ribs and inserts on the angles of the 1st to 6th ribs. And the lumbar part of this muscle is known as iliocostalis lumborum. It has its origins on the lateral crest of the sacrum, the medial end of the iliac crest, and the thoracolumbar fascia. It inserts on the angle of the 5th or 6th to 12th ribs, the deep layer of the thoracolumbar fascia, and on the transverse processes of the vertebrae L1 to L4. Although this muscle can be broken into 3 parts based on the origins and insertions, the entire muscle is generally innervated by the lateral branches of the posterior rami of spinal nerves C4 to C8. While the bilateral contraction of the entire iliocostalis muscle extends to the spine, unilateral contraction results in the bending of the spine laterally to the same or ipsilateral side. The next muscle in the erector spinae is the longissimus muscle. The longissimus muscle is situated medial to the iliocostalis muscle. Like the iliocostalis, the longissimus muscle has 3 parts. The most superior part of the muscle, the longissimus capitis, has its origins on the transverse processes of the 4th cervical vertebra to the 5th thoracic vertebra. It inserts superiorly on the mastoid process of the temporal bone. The middle part of this muscle, the longissimus cervicis, has its origins on the transverse processes of the 1st to 6th thoracic vertebrae and inserts superiorly on the transverse processes of the 2nd to 6th cervical vertebrae. And the most inferior part of this muscle, which is the thoracic part, is known as the longissimus thoracis. It has its origins on the medial end of the iliac crest, the lateral crest of the sacrum, and the spinous and transverse processes of vertebrae L1 to L5. It inserts on the transverse processes of the vertebrae of T1 to T12 and the angles of the 5th to 12th ribs. The longissimus muscle receives innervation from the lateral branches of the posterior rami of spinal nerve C1 to L5. The bilateral contraction of the entire longissimus muscle extends the spine, while unilateral contraction bends the spine laterally to the same side. The most superior part of this muscle, the longissimus capitis, extends the head and neck when it contracts bilaterally, and laterally flexes and rotates the head to the same side upon unilateral contraction. The last muscle of the erector spinae is the spinalis muscle, and there are 3 parts to this muscle. The superior part of this muscle is the spinalis capitis, which has its origins on the spinous processes of C7 to T1 vertebrae and inserts on the occipital bone at the midline. The middle part of the muscle is the spinalis cervicis, which has its origins on the spinous processes of vertebrae C7 to T1 as well as the nuchal ligament. It inserts superiorly on the spinous processes of vertebrae C2 to C4. In general, this part of the spinalis muscle is not well developed and is quite variable in its attachments. The inferior part of this muscle, the spinalis thoracis, has its origins on the spinous processes of vertebrae T11 to L2 and inserts superiorly on the spinous processes of the 2nd to 8th thoracic vertebrae. Like the other members of the erector spinae, the spinalis muscle receives innervation from the lateral branches of the posterior rami found along the length of the muscle. The bilateral contraction of the spinalis muscle extends the cervical and thoracic spine, while unilateral contraction bends the cervical and thoracic spine laterally to the same side. If you found this quick anatomy or physiology video helpful, you'll enjoy our video tutorials even more. Click on the button and you'll see what I mean. We have hundreds of videos available to our premium members, not to mention all the fun quizzes, complete articles, and atlas sections to solidify your knowledge. Click on the button in the middle to watch the full-length video and master anatomy and physiology.